Well, welcome to the podcast. Yes, here's your host, Rob Elliott. And we have not let you down today. We have a beautiful guest from Chicago in America. She is an entrepreneur. She is a scaling strategist. She is a mum. She's been a marketing expert. And these days she shows people all about how to scale their business and make it one of the most rewarding things they can possibly do. Welcome to the show, Stephanie Barker. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me here.
Steph, Chicago, what a beautiful place to live.
In the summer, yes. In the winter, no. It's freezing in the winter, but yes, it is beautiful.
Have you always lived in Chicago?
I have. I technically live right outside of the city now. I did live downtown for a few years, though, and I loved it. Yeah. I miss it every day.
So what, do you live in a small part, a small family?
Yeah, so we live right outside of the city in the suburbs.
Yep.
A little less crazy, better place to raise children.
Yeah.
Much nicer. Don't have to lug the groceries up 20 flights anymore, so that's great.
So did you grow up inside Chicago or again out on the outskirts?
On the outskirts. So I grew up about an hour and a half outside of Chicago, and now I live about 30 minutes outside.
Oh, awesome. And so were you a good student at school or did you hide down the back?
That's a great question. No, I was not a great student in school. This is actually going to be funny, but I was chasing boys a lot of the time in school and I was playing sports.
Yep.
That's what I was focused on the majority of the time.
So you were living life.
I was, exactly. Yes. It wasn't until college that I actually started to care about my education.
So normally when I interview people, it's the other way around, that they start chasing, or the ladies start chasing boys, and that when they're in college, or as we call it, university, and the social life is so big, but the actual education part sort of is there on the side.
Yeah, well, I was actually in a unique situation in college because I was in an abusive relationship for 5 years. So I didn't have the college experience like most people do, which I'm sure that's probably something you didn't think I was going to say.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I didn't have the traditional college experience like most people did.
So what did you study when you went to college?
I actually studied graphic design. So my degree is in art, surprisingly.
Yes. And how was that?
It was great. I really enjoyed it. I actually ended up graduating college in 3 years instead of 4 years because I was working nonstop. That work ethic really kicked in once I landed in college. But no, it was great. Learned a ton. Now I don't use any of it in my business now, which I'm sure my parents aren't thrilled about, but it's fine. We live and we learn.
That's true. So you said that when you were in college, you were in an abusive relationship. At the time, did you know, or did you just think that was how it was?
That's a really good question. So that relationship started my senior year of high school, and I didn't know then. But about a year or so into it is when the true colors started to show. But by that point, when you're 18 years old, you're in love and you think that this is the only person that you're going to be with for the rest of your life. And you just kind of turn a blind eye to red flags that start to show up.
Yeah. I've heard that many times, but you still managed to graduate.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did. And actually, so this is a whole other part of this story. He was actually in the military. So he was deployed in Afghanistan for a couple of those years while I was in college. So like I said, I graduated college in 3 years. So I was really dedicated to my schoolwork during that time so that I can get out as quickly as possible.
And what was the straw that broke the camel's back to free you?
Finding out that he had cheated on me, actually. Yeah, it was just something that I told myself. I said that was the final straw of something that I was never going to deal with. So
I gather it was a massive weight off your back when it finally all happened and you were free.
It was definitely a weight off, but also a difficult transition because when you're in this world with one other person for 5 years, it's tough to transition out of that. So the subsequent years is when I had a lot of fun. I was partying a lot. I was meeting a lot of people, doing the things that you traditionally do in college. So my timeline is a little bit backwards in a sense.
Is there such a thing as what should happen and what order it should happen? I don't think so.
That's true. It's all part of the journey.
it is all part of the journey. And, sometimes everyone has a time when they hit the bumps, and other times when it's nice, smooth sailing, and other times when you're looking at the petrol gauge going, oh dear, I'm just about to run out of gas.
Right. Yeah. I've been in all of those situations. So yeah, I get it. Absolutely.
So what was your first job once you finished?
When I graduated college, I actually worked at an engineering company, and it was terribly boring because I was designing instruction manuals with my graphic design degree. So it's about as boring as you can imagine it would be.
And engineers aren't known for partying hard either.
They are not. They're very dry people, but it was a job, and it was after the recession in 2008. So I was just happy to have a job at that point.
So did you eventually end up in marketing?
I did. Yeah. So I was in that job for, I think, 4 or 5 years, something like that. And then I moved to Chicago, moved to the city, got a job at a digital marketing agency, and worked my way from the ground floor as a graphic design associate all the way up to director of the company. Was on track to become the youngest VP of that company. And then I decided I wanted to start my own business. And that's where my entrepreneurship journey really began.
So what was the catalyst? What made you weren't just sitting there having a coffee going, oh, I'm just going to quit today and start my own business?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So in this agency, we were actually helping franchise owners start or market their companies. So I was working with these entrepreneurs all of the time, and I was thinking, I'm helping them market their business and grow their own business and have this own life of freedom for themselves. Why can't I do this for myself? So that thought had been swirling in my head for a couple of years. And then one day on my lunch break, I was sitting on my phone scrolling through Facebook, and there was an ad that I was targeted with. So whoever created that ad did a very good job because they targeted me well. And I signed up for a free training that showed me how to use the skills that I had in my corporate job in my own business. And that's where it started. So I started using graphic design and marketing skills and started a virtual assistant business, which turned into a virtual assistant agency, which now I teach other women how to do the same thing in their lives and businesses, teaching them to start and then scale those.
So did you run that business on the side while still working for the others?
I did. Yeah. So I ran my VA business on the side for about 3 years until I found out that I was pregnant with my son. And I knew that after my maternity leave was up, I didn't want to go back to this job. So I just went full force in my business. I just dedicated to doing whatever I needed to do in order to make sure that I didn't have to go back to my 9-to-5 job. And then after I had my son, it was it. So I was kind of birthing, I had this new baby, this human baby, and then I had this business baby at the same time. So it was a lot. It's a lot to go through.
So what was your biggest challenge when you first started out? Was it being a lady starting a business? Was it finding customers? What was the biggest challenge?
I would say getting consistent revenue in my business was the most difficult because, like I said, I had this background in marketing, so I knew how to market. I knew how to bring clients in, but it was just really making sure that the revenue was consistent month over month. But after I figured that out, everything else was smooth sailing. It was much easier after you have consistent revenue coming in.
So what was it like when the first time someone, or first couple of times people just said no, when you're just starting out in the business and you're all full of energy and everything, and people slam doors in your face and people say, no, I want to go with someone more experienced, or I want to do, no, you're not for us. How did you handle that?
Yeah, it sucked. I cried. If I'm being totally honest, I cried quite a few times. It was really terrible because I knew that I was really great at what I was doing. But for these people to just look at me and say no, for whatever reason, they said no, for whether I was too expensive or they wanted somebody with more experience or whatever. It was hard. So my husband had to go through a lot of tears with me. Poor guy. He's a trooper. But I'm really glad for all of those no's that I had, because now I know how to approach pretty much any situation that I come across. So it's all about the journey, like we were talking about before.
Before we get into what you do today, which is helping people scale their business, when you were looking at people in franchises, which have got a hit and miss name now around the world, some are really good and some aren't so good, Did you ever see someone in a franchise that you could see just by looking at them that they were the wrong fit? It wasn't where they should be?
Oh, so many. So many. We worked, so in this specific company that I was in, we worked with the franchisors and the franchisees.
Yeah.
So we worked hand in hand with both groups. And a lot of the franchisees, they had the best intentions going into these businesses. But I think a lot of them didn't realize that they were buying themselves a job, which is what actually ended up happening instead of actually being an entrepreneur and having this own business, because the amount of money that a lot of these franchisees were spending and the amount of time that they were putting into these businesses did not allow them to have any freedom at all. Honestly, they were constantly working.
Do you think it's because franchise business traditionally cost about double of a normal business to set up?
I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe some people look at it and think that they have to work harder because they've put X amount into the business. I don't think it necessarily has to do with the dollar amount. I think it's just on an individual basis.
Yeah, because working harder doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't being productive.
Exactly. Working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I know. It's an old cliche, but how true is it?
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. That's why now in my business, I only work about 15 to 20 hours a week, and I make way more than I ever did at that marketing agency where I was working 60 hours a week.
But you've got thousands of people working for you. So, you can get away with doing that, can't you?
That's hilarious. I have 4, but not thousands. I don't ever want to have thousands of people working for me. I don't think.
So what do you do actually today? We've heard your story so far. You're a marketing expert. You've worked with engineers. You worked with franchisees and franchisors. What made you then go back over to say, okay, I'm going to teach people how to scale their business, and they're going to believe me because I'm going to smile at them and go, here, let me help you.
Right. Yeah. Well, the journey to actually stepping into the consulting space was a difficult one because there were a lot of mindset issues that I had to work through, a lot of fears that were coming up just around, am I actually good enough to teach people how to do this? Like, yes, I've had success in my own business, but what about all of these other people? Like, I'm actually taking their money and they're expecting a result. Can I do this? So that was one of the biggest things that came up for me. But I was running my agency for about 3 years before I decided to just fully shut that down and then go all in on the consulting side. So I've been doing that now for about 2.5 years, and it's been amazing. It's the most fulfilling thing that I never knew I needed in my life, which is just great. Because I specifically work with women, and a lot of them are moms. So a lot of them are in that space where I was a few years ago with working in that 9 to 5 or wanting to stay home with their kids, but not knowing how to make it possible. So now I show them how to do that, and it's just the best thing ever.
How did you feel when you got your first full-on signed client?
Stressed, honestly, because again, I knew that this person was looking to get some pretty amazing results in their business, and it was up to me in my mind at that point to deliver those results for them, to make sure that they got those results, and they ended up getting the results. But it took me a while to also realize that I am not necessarily responsible for the results that my clients get. That was another big breakthrough that I've had over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I've had similar conversations with a client of mine about, I'm here to coach you, but it's up to you to implement. And
exactly.
It's all on you. I'm just here to get the best out of you.
Exactly. And it's so difficult because I'm teaching clients what I used to do. So I could easily go into their business and do all of these things for them, but I just have to hold the reins, or what's the saying? I have to
no different.
Put the brakes on.
Yeah, no different to being a mum when you're looking at your beautiful 2.5-year-old and they've got to make their own mistakes.
Yes.
Along the line.
Also very difficult.
Yes, you can't wrap them in cotton wool and do everything for them.
Yes. Learning not to babysit my clients is something that I have definitely struggled with, but I am much better at now because, again, you see them making a mistake just like a 2.5-year-old, and you want to stop them, but they need to make that mistake in order to learn.
So what's the most common business someone comes to you with?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of coaches and service providers.
Mm.
So service providers, people who do done for you services like
Yep.
virtual assistants, graphic
Yep.
designers, copywriters,
Yep.
that group of people.
And where in their business journey are they at when they first come to see you? One employee, no employees, no money coming
Yes.
in?
So it's a range. So I have one group of people who are just at the beginning stage of starting their business. They don't
Yep.
know how to generate that consistent revenue. And then the other group are people who they're booked out in their business. They're working constantly. They know they need to bring team members on, but they have no idea how to make that happen because they're constantly working. So
Yeah.
the first group, I help them start their business and then grow it to those consistent revenue months. And then the second group is who we help scale with the team members, high revenue months, all of that.
So which is easier, helping someone who's just starting or helping someone who needs to scale?
Honestly, helping somebody who needs to scale because they already know a lot of the things that they need to do, at least mentally. It's just actually getting them to implement those things in their business. Because beginning business owners, they have a lot of mindset stuff that comes up, which is completely normal. Everybody has that. So it's almost a little bit difficult to work through those and kind of push people through those barriers. But regardless, I enjoy working with both groups.
That's awesome. Awesome. You can see it. I know anyone listening on the podcast won't be able to see it, but if you're watching on YouTube, when she talks about these customers, her whole face lights up. So, she truly loves what she does. If someone came to you for a few tips and said, look, I've just started out my business, it's just plodding along, really a lady basically doing what you call service industry, what's 3 or 4 tips you would give someone when they're first starting out that can make life a lot easier and can get some money coming in quicker?
Yeah, that's great. So my first tip is to get really clear on what you're actually offering in your business. A lot of people have a long list of services that they're offering. And I always suggest getting down to 1, 2 max, because you need to, this leads me to my next tip, become known for one main service that you can offer so that people can send referrals to you. So having a referral program is a really great way to get really solid clients because your current clients are referring people to you. So they already know that you're doing a great job. And then my third tip would be to be really consistent with your marketing efforts. A lot of people tend to give up, and it typically takes about 90 days to start seeing results from your marketing efforts. But most people give up after a couple of weeks or even a month. So I would say those are my 3 big tips.
So when it comes to marketing, this is a big thing. People just think of, say, Facebook, or is it marketing? Should it be matched to what you're offering, or should you have what we call a scattergun approach? Or what are the tips around marketing where you're going to get best bang for your buck?
I mean, this may not be a popular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. I feel like you need to market in whatever way feels good to you. So for example, if you're somebody who enjoys showing up on live video and that gives you a lot of energy, show up on live video once a week, teach people things. If you're somebody who prefers to write blog posts, write social media content, or if you're somebody who likes to talk, market through a podcast. So I think it's really specific for each individual person, but feel into what feels naturally good for you. Because if you're trying to market your business in a way that doesn't feel good to you, you're not going to do it. And it's going to come off as really inauthentic.
Do you see platforms like TikTok and a few others that have come out as being the next channel to market, or do you see them as being fads and not really good for promoting your company?
I mean, it depends on what feels good to you. So anybody can be successful on any platform. You can be successful on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, only email marketing, Pinterest. You can be successful on all of them. I would always suggest to pick one and go all in on it. So pick one that feels really great to you, pick 1 or 2 strategies that feel really great to you, and go all in on that. A lot of people tend to get distracted by new platforms or new dance routines that they see on TikTok when they don't need to. Like if something's already working, keep going with it. Don't stop it.
And what's the most common mistake you see an entrepreneur starting out make? What's something that you've seen time and time again? People go and you look at them and go, "Why did you do that?"
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say one of the biggest ones is people thinking that they need to be marketing on all of the different platforms. So they're spreading themselves way too thin by trying to show up everywhere and be everything to everybody instead of just really niching down into one core group, focusing on one main platform, and then going all in on those things. I would say or underpricing their services. That's another really big one I see.
Price seems to be the lever people pull when sales drop down, but you can actually hurt your brand more than enhance it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You're referring to people like dropping their prices?
Yeah, just dropping it. Yeah, without warning.
Yeah. Yeah. And something that I always tell my clients is that people are going to pay any price for anything as long as they see the value in it. So it doesn't matter if your services are $300 or $3,000. If you're connecting with the right people and marketing your business effectively, somebody will pay you $3,000 for your service. You just have to convey that value to them.
As someone said, it's not the best product that sells, it's the best marketed product that sells.
That is accurate as well. Yeah. People don't buy products, they buy feelings and emotions. So as long as you're making people feel something, then they're going to buy from you.
As they buy with emotion and justify later.
Yes.
Many. And
I have done that myself.
I was about to say many young lady have done that with a dress they've bought down the road and come back and then justified. But darling, it was on sale. It's going to look lovely next summer.
Yes, I've done that with all dresses, handbags, you name it. I've done it.
So what about with people who are looking to scale their business? I mean, they're in business. They're quite set in their ways. They think they know what they're doing, but they need to scale, and they come to you going, I'm working 60 hours a week. I've got all these things, but it's not going anywhere. Steph, help. What are some of the mistakes they're making, and what are a couple of tips you can give people who are in that situation?
Yeah, well, the biggest mistake that I see that group making is they're also undercharging for their services. So they likely have too many clients at a low price point. So that's why they're working constantly. And they also are holding on to control of all of the things happening in their business. So they're afraid to outsource anything because they don't want to give up control, or they think that they don't have enough money to outsource, when in reality, outsourcing, it doesn't take a lot of money, but people think that it takes tens of thousands of dollars for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. So yeah, I would say those are the two big ones: holding on to things and not delegating, and then also undercharging for their services.
Yeah, it's so true, so true. Do you see now now we're all coming out of COVID, more people going and being entrepreneurs and less I want to work 9 to 5 at an office and get nowhere?
Yes. I can't even tell you how many people I've connected with, specifically virtual assistants, because that's a lot of, that's the group that I work with. There's so many people who have started their virtual assistant business in the past year because they were either let go from their job, or they had to stay home and teach their kids, and they ended up losing their job, whatever the reason was. But yes, it has exploded.
Yeah, someone was saying in some countries, people have 2 or 3 contracts. They're now contracted to do a job, not contracted to work for a company. And it's amazing that where they used to be, if I use the old term, a secretary, they could be a secretary to 3 companies and do all the virtual assistant stuff, as you said, not necessarily just tied to one.
Yeah, that's a lot of what you're seeing right now.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep, they're independent contractors.
Yeah, and they don't. No one needs to be tied to one company anymore. They can do multiples. It's just about getting the job done.
Yep, now, exactly.
I saw this when I was first starting out as a rep. I used to see people in businesses working 7 days a week, not having any time for themselves. How important is it for a business owner to schedule time with their mates, or time to go to the hairdresser, or time just to be with themselves and away from the business?
It's the most important thing you can do in your business, because if you're burnt out and if you're running on E, then your business is not going to run, because at the end of the day, even if you have team members, you're still responsible for the business as a whole. You are the CEO of this company. And if something happens to you, if you run yourself into the ground, you end up hospitalized, you end up I don't know, in an accident, whatever it is, because you're working nonstop and you're not sleeping enough, then your business won't go on without you. So I always suggest having some kind of daily routine. Mine is specifically in the morning, but sometime in the morning, afternoon, whenever, that you can dedicate to yourself. Just quiet time to yourself, journaling, meditation, exercise, whatever feels good to you, so that you can really center into yourself and remember why you're working so hard for this business in the first place. Because I feel like a lot of people just kind of get stuck in the rat race of it all.
So your husband is a nurse, so he would work strange hours.
Yeah.
Does he have to go to your assistant and book in a time for a play date? So
that's funny. Yes, he does. He does. He actually works. So the schedule that he's on now, he works 4 10-hour shifts a week. So he's off 3 days a week. So those are the 3 days that I will typically get my work done. And then outside of that, I don't really work. Yeah. But because we also lost childcare in COVID too. So that was a huge issue. So I'm responsible for my son the majority of the time. But yeah, I mean, we live and die by Google Calendar in our family.
Nothing wrong with that. If you check the calendar event that came through you, you'll see there's an optional one underneath of invitees, and I always include my wife.
Oh, do you? That's smart.
She knows exactly when. I mean, at the moment she's asleep because it's quite early in Australia, but she knows, and it's the only way it works. And she does the same to me.
Yeah, we have to have shared calendars, or else it would be chaos for sure.
So what's the future for your business? Where do you see yourself growing in the next 5 years? And you're seeing business itself evolves quite quickly. Everything's been thrown out 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And obviously making multiple millions of dollars, serving as many people as I possibly can through my programs, through my coaching, and honestly, just having the biggest impact possible on women that I can. Yeah. So whether they want to, like I said, leave their 9-to-5 jobs and start their own businesses or scale their existing businesses, just really helping women specifically find this purpose for themselves and have these lives of freedom for themselves. So they're not tied to really unflexible schedules anymore.
Yeah. Look, I was speaking with someone the other day, and they said what irritates them is when they see other women putting women down, saying, you should be at home, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And I tell you what, I've been in sales and management for over 30 years, and some of my best and my worst bosses have been women. And it's just the same as men. But a woman in a business puts a totally different dynamic to it. And I work also in a business that's male dominated. And I love it when there's women in that business. It just throws everything out. It's like a disruptor.
It really is. Yeah. My husband and I were actually talking about that last night, about the just general differences between men and women and how they operate. Yeah. But yeah, there needs to be more women-owned businesses in this world, just in general.
Yeah, there does, especially driven women. And they normally are much more focused than men. And they know what they're doing. They're more brutal to deal with. And I'm saying that in a good way, good and bad.
Yeah.
So if any of our listeners wanted to touch base with you to see if you could help them, what's your ideal customer? Like, what type of person should reach out to you, and where should they find you, and what are your services you specifically offer to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are, I don't know if you have any listeners in 9-to-5 jobs right now, but if you're in a 9-to-5 job, or maybe you've just started your business and you know that you want to reach consistent revenue months.
Yep.
I have a program called the Scalable Service System that is literally created for you. Or if you're running your business, you're stressed, you don't know what your next move would be, I offer one-on-one coaching for that, or consulting, and then also a program called 6-Figure Service. So there's a couple of different ways, but the best way that you can learn about all of those is to go to my website, theblakecollective.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram, which is my one platform that I spend time on. So I follow my own advice there.
Awesome.
And the handle is the Blake Collective there too.
So I'm going to throw another one back at you, and you didn't know this one's coming. There's a beautiful Italian restaurant in Chicago. It's not far off that big park. I can't remember the name. And it's down, so it was all white on the outside. I can't remember the name. But if I turned around and said, Steph, I've just booked a table for you there, and you can have 3 people at the table. Who are you going to invite and
That's
why?
a great question. Oh, that's a great question.
And I'm going to throw a curveball in. They have to be alive, and they all can't be women.
Okay. Well, I have 2 off the top of my head. So the first would be Oprah, just because Oprah is amazing in so many different capacities.
Yep.
The second would be Elon Musk, and I know we were talking about him earlier too, just because his brain operates in insane ways.
Yes.
And I don't even understand him. And I think the third one would have to be Kanye West, because his brain also operates in a very unique way, and I would just love to have a conversation with him to try to figure out what's going on up there.
Didn't he just change his name or something?
Probably. I don't know.
No one knows with him.
He's the most unique individual I think I've ever seen. So just having a moment would be great.
That's been, look, Steph, it's been an absolute hoot, as we say in Australia, talking to you. You're full of beans, and anyone who would take the time to meet with you and be your client is going to just live off the infectious laughter and energy you bring to a room. So it's been a complete pleasure interviewing you today. I hope everything keeps rocking out in Chicago, and your beautiful 2.5-year-old doesn't go through the terrible 2s for too much longer.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. And yeah, I'm really ready for the terrible 2s to be over. That's for sure.
That's awesome. And as we say at the end of all of our podcasts, have a groovy day.